Welcome to Algebra 1. The learning goal for this episode is to learn how to write an equation for a line in standard form. First, some necessary vocabulary. Mathematicians refer to a linear equation being in standard form when it looks like ax plus by equals c, as long as a, b, and c are all real numbers, and as long as both a and b are not equal to 0. So, for example, the equation 2x plus 3y equals 6 is in standard form, with a being 2, b being 3, and c being 6. It's important to realize that there are an infinite number of ways to write an equation for any given line in standard form. For example, we could choose to multiply both sides of this equation by any number, let's say 2, and then get a new form that would be equivalent. In this case, 4x plus 6y equals 12. Those would both be standard forms of that equation. Let's look at some examples. We want to write an equation in standard form for a line that passes through the point negative 2, 4, and has a slope of 3. Well, we know a point and we know the slope. So the logical thing to do is to use our point-slope form, which gives us y minus 4 equals 3 times the quantity x minus negative 2. Remember that our goal is to get this into the form ax plus by equals c. So we begin to simplify this a little bit. But note we still have the y on one side and the x on the other side. That is not standard form. So we want to get both the x and the y to the left side and all the constants to the right side. So we'll subtract 3x from both sides, and we'll also add 4 to both sides. This gives us negative 3x plus y on the left side and 10 on the right side. This is now an equation in standard form for our line. Let's try another example. In this case, we're given 2 points and asked to write an equation in standard form for the line that passes through them. Since we're given 2 points, first we need to calculate our slope by subtracting our y's to find our rise and subtracting our x's to find our run. This gives us a slope of 1. Now we can use point-slope form. Note that I can choose to use either point and then use my slope of 1 in each case. Now I begin to simplify. Remember, if it's going to be in standard form, I need to get all the variables to the left side of the equation and all the constants to the right side. So I'm working through the equation with both points here so you can see that it works the same way. For our first point, which is the equation on the left, I want to subtract x and add 4 to both sides of the equation. But if I'm working with the second point on the right, I would still subtract x, but this time I'd add 10. No matter which point I choose to use, the equation in standard form will still work out to be negative x plus y equals 5. Note that you don't have to do this with both points. I was just showing you that it works with either point. Let's look at another example where they give us 2 points. Again, we first calculate our slope. In this case, that works out to be 2. Then I can choose to use either point and substitute it into point-slope form. Then I simplify a little bit. Now I subtract 2x and 3 from both sides if I'm working with the first point on the left side, or I subtract 2x and add 5 if I'm working with the second point on the right side. In either case, the standard form works out to be negative 2x plus y equals 1. Again, it's important to understand that you do not have to work through this with both points. Just pick one. But it's also important to know that you can use either point and it will still work out to the same standard form, which is why I showed you with both points. Now for our guided practice section. We're going to work through some problems together. You do not need to write down these problems, just step through them with me. At each step I'm going to prompt you the question you should be asking yourself, then I'll pause for about 5 seconds for you to think about it and answer it for yourself, then I'll show you. So for this problem, our first question is, what are we trying to do here? What we're trying to do is write an equation in standard form for this line given 1 point and the slope. So how do we do that? We use point-slope form and substitute in our point and our slope. Now what? Now we begin simplifying by using the distributive property. Are we finished? No, because our equation is not in standard form yet. So what do we do next? We need to get all our x's to the left side of the equation and all our constants to the right. So we're going to subtract 1/4 x from both sides and then also add 8 to both sides. Now what? Now we simplify. Is our equation in standard form? Yes, it is in the form ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are all real numbers and a and b are not both 0. This is sometimes confusing for students because they think that a and b both have to be integers, so they think that 1/4 can't be there. But they just have to be real numbers, so the 1/4 is fine. Let's try another example. What are we trying to do here? Again, we're trying to write an equation in standard form, but this time we're given 2 points. So what do we need to do first? First, we have to find our slope. What's the next step? Now we substitute our slope and one of our points into point slope form. Remember, we can use either point. Now what? Now we use whichever equation we picked and begin simplifying it. I'm just going to work on the one on the left here. What's our next step? Our next step is to get all of our x's to the left side and all of our constants to the right. So we're going to add 2x to both sides of the equation and also subtract 2 from both sides. Now what? Now we simplify. Our equation is in standard form, so we're finished. Now for the self-check section. In this section, you're going to physically pause the video as you work out the problem on paper in your notebook. Then you'll press play to check to see how you did. You'll have 5 seconds to pause the video after I stop speaking before I show you the solution. Please pause the video now and work out the problem, then press play to check. Here is the solution. Please compare this to your work. Pause the video here if you need more time to compare, then press play again to move to the next problem. Same thing on this problem. Pause the video, write down this problem and work it out in your notebook, then press play to check. Please pause the video now. Here's the solution. Again, pause the video if you need more time to compare this to your work. In closing, let's review our learning goal. We wanted to learn how to write an equation for a line in standard form. We did that by first defining what standard form was, then using various techniques we have learned to write an equation for the line, then simplifying it into standard form.